This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to Talk Business and Politics Daily. It's Tuesday, August 9th. Let's check out today's top stories. Elixir, a team of software engineering specialists, will expand its presence in North Little Rock, adding 45 workers to support clients worldwide. Elixir works with clients in the financial, healthcare, e-commerce, and supply chain space. The company will locate in downtown North Little Rock's Argenta district. The Arkansas Farm Bureau joining with the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce in opposing two medical marijuana initiatives that are likely to be on the November ballot. Representatives of the two organizations are part of the Coalition for Safer Arkansas Communities, which also includes law enforcement and medical community providers. Members of the two proposals to pass medical marijuana say they welcome the debate, but said the medical benefits of legalized marijuana are no different than prescribed drugs in terms of workplace impact. Little Rock-based Wellspun Tubular received a $47 million contract to manufacture two-thirds of the pipe needed to construct the 440-mile Diamond Pipeline, a controversial multi-state project that will ship crude oil from Cushing, Oklahoma to Memphis, Tennessee, across Arkansas. Next week, the pipeline gets a hearing at the Public Service Commission. And those are your top stories of the day. You can check out a full read on those articles and much, much more at our website at talkbusiness.net. Now, after the break, we talk business, medicine, and education with Dr. Chuck Welch, president for the Arkansas State University System. We'll dive into the latest Arkansas home sales report and a portion of my recent interview with Senator Tom Cotton. When will we see a replacement bill for Obamacare? More to come after this.
First Security is here. Only here. So that means we're here, here, and here. Even here. And definitely here. Because here is where we want to be for you. First Security Bank, only in Arkansas.
Arkansas's most abundant natural resource provides the core asset for Deltic Timber Corporation. In addition to the sustainable yield stewardship of its well-stocked timberlands, Deltic adds value by integrating its efficient wood products manufacturing facilities, as well as through planned development of commercial and residential real estate. Deltic Timber Corporation, creating value for a growing Arkansas.
Dr. Charles Chuck Welch was appointed president of the Arkansas State University System in November 2010. He's been busy during that tenure with growth at all 5 ASU campuses. We're here to talk about the past, the present, and the future. Welcome, Dr. Welch.
Oh, thank you, Roby.
I'm going to have to call you Chuck because I've known you a long time.
Yeah, I think that's probably appropriate.
We'll be as formal as we need to be. Let's talk first about something that started on Monday on the ASU campus, and that was the first day of the osteopathic medical school in Wilson Hall. Were you surprised you guys were able to get this thing pulled together so quickly?
You know, nothing surprises me anymore about what our folks are able to get done, but when our partners with the New York Institute of Technology said, if we can get this approved, then it will happen. And last Friday, we had the white coat ceremony where they gave each one of the students their original white coat. And when you see those 120 medical students walk across that stage and realize that 70 of whom are from Arkansas, that those are going to be future physicians, hopefully staying in the Delta region and serving that region. It made the lot of hard work in a very short period of time paid off very quickly.
Tell me what your expectations are for what the size of the school will be and just kind of what some of its mission may evolve into.
Well, right now we're expecting to have about 120 students every year, and hopefully 70 or more of those, hopefully this is a small number this year, will come from Arkansas. We'd like to see as many as possible come from within Arkansas State. And the ultimate goal is to have those individuals stay in the region, hopefully as primary care physicians, so that we can give back to those areas. You know, when we started this project, we realized that the most underserved medical populations in the country are in the Delta of Arkansas and Mississippi. And so we're hopeful that this will provide that incentive for those individuals to not only be educated in the area, but stay there and practice as well. You know, we're talking $80 million a year in terms of economic impact. So it's not only going to be beneficial when they finish 4 years from now, but it's beneficial right now in terms of what it's going to provide for the region.
And what's different between a DO and a medical
Well, it's a
doctor
great
there?
question, and one we get a lot from a lot of people. They do the same residencies. DOs can do specialties. They can be surgeons. They can be, you know, any type of specialty that a MD can be. It has a little bit difference in the curriculum and the way they approach medicine, but these are individuals that about 60% of DOs nationwide become primary care physicians. So that was one of the reasons it was most attractive to us, because we have such a desperate need in the Delta.
All right, let's turn to a controversy on campus that erupted last week, the resignation of Dr. Tim Hudson. I'll go, I guess a Cliff Notes version is that he may have, an internal audit found he may have violated some ethics laws, perhaps even more than that, with some conflicts of interest with business, allegedly helping a family member get some financial aid. I see this more as kind of a rogue operator kind of happened versus something systemic. What is your take on what happened?
Well, I would agree with that, Roby. I don't think we've uncovered anything that would suggest there was a systemic problem. Obviously, he made some unfortunate decisions and decisions that we had to act on very quickly. It appears that no money is missing from the university, but rather he perhaps used his position to try to secure some personal gain and didn't dot his I's and cross his T's like he should have on some other things as well as some inappropriate nepotism things that you may have seen. But you know, we're addressing that very quickly. Our internal audit system worked perfectly. From the first time that we were informed there could be a problem by an anonymous tipster, our system went to work. And
what was your gut reaction when you got that first
you know, the gut reaction was that one of the things I've said to our folks on campus is I don't act on rumor and innuendo. You know, you hear a lot of gossip and things on college campuses, and I told our internal auditors, I want you to do this investigation. I will stay completely out of that, so it can't be insinuated that there was any administrator trying to intervene. When you come up with the facts, then present those to me and we will act accordingly. And so when that happened, we did. And you know, the thing about it was there's a few areas we need to shore up some policies. There's a few areas we need to have some protocols in place. But the truth of the matter is, in most of the instances, those policies were already there. They just weren't followed by one or two individuals, and we've dealt with those and we'll move forward. But you know, I think we'll come out of this stronger. We'll come out of this together. We'll look for places that we can learn some lessons. But unfortunately, when you have an enterprise as large as ours, these types of things are going to happen from time to time.
You guys have said that it is not going to derail your efforts to open a campus in Mexico. How does it not derail that effort? Because Dr. Hudson was in charge of
Well, he
that
was,
effort.
and certainly he was one of the keys. And you know, he did some very good things and was a visionary individual and helped get that project started. I visited last week with our Mexican partners, and the first thing they communicated to me was that this was an agreement between two entities, not between two individuals. And so there's going to be some learning curve. We're going to have to get some folks more up to speed on some of the areas where perhaps Dr. Hudson took the largest role, but we're committed to doing that. We had actually just selected our permanent director who will be on site there, and so that individual will have to take on an added role. Our Mexican partners are coming in next week, and we'll spend a considerable amount of time trying to catch up. But you know, the buildings are going up. We're getting ready for the classes. We've got a lot of good people that can pick up the ball and run. Certainly there'll be some different people in the room, and we'll have to do a little bit of learning and fill in some gaps, but I'm confident it will continue and be very successful.
And be on track.
And be on track.
All right. Let's talk about the big move from the Department of Higher Education Coordinating Board to institute a new funding formula for institutions of higher education, basically to move more from an enrollment position to a graduation position there. You think this is a good move?
I do. You know, one of the things that I've said is we need to change the narrative about higher education, and we need to be able to say to policymakers and the general public that we really are focused on student outcomes. We always have been. I'm just not sure we've always done a good enough job of communicating that.
And you haven't been rewarded financially for that.
We've not. You know, it's been more on how many students you have on that first day, and that's important to make sure you've got the right types of programs in place to help them be successful. But this will change that narrative. I'm not sure there is another state entity that is judged on their performance. It's something we're not scared of. It's something we want to work very hard on. And you know, we feel like the only way we're going to get Arkansas to where we need it to be is by investing in our students. Unfortunately, we've seen very little, if any, new state money over the last few years, and we feel like if we can really begin to show that progress and be gauged on performance, maybe that will change some of the funding that comes into our institutions as well.
And is this going to, because one of the criticisms about this change in the formula is that it will encourage universities and colleges to be more selective on the front end so that you only get the outcomes that you're looking for. How do you guard against that?
Well, you have to guard very carefully. And I mean, I certainly understand those concerns because that would be a very easy way of maybe trying to game the system, if you will. I think that one of the things we have to be mindful of is the fact that we've been 48th or 49th, unfortunately, for many, many years, and we're not going to change that statistic if we're only focusing on those students who are the best prepared to be successful in college. We've got to remember that access is critically important. And so I think there will be multiple systems built within that performance funding system that will reward institutions for enrolling more underprepared students, more students who are from underrepresented groups historically. And so there will be some incentives within the program that will help kind of counterbalance that and prevent institutions from trying to just only go with the most academically talented students.
And all this really won't play out until next year when the legislature comes into it.
That's right. It would have to be approved and change the funding formula.
All right, Dr. Charles Welch, Chuck Welch, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Roby. Good to see you as always.
All right, take care.
All right.
After this break, a look at home sales in Arkansas. The market's still very red hot. Plus, Senator Tom Cotton on health care reform. We know he's against Obamacare, if you hadn't caught that already, but does he have an alternative? We'll find out after this.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Power in knowledge.
Time now to dive into Arkansas's home sales report, brought to you by Deltic Timber and Arvest Bank. The monthly home sales report offers a deep dive into home sales and home values in the biggest markets across the state, which account for about 75% of all home sales. Here's the bottom line. It's not slowing down. Home sales are up 13% in the first half of 2016 compared to the same period a year ago. The number of homes sold in Arkansas's 4 largest markets totaled 12,587. The 6-month tally tops the pre-recession 2006 high when 12,320 homes were sold. So what do all those home sales translate into in terms of dollars? $2.25 billion. That's the combined value of homes sold in the January through June period, and that is up 18% compared to the same period in 2015. It's up 34% compared to the same period in 2014. About sales price per home in the first 6 months, it averaged out at $178,801, up nearly 4.5% compared to the same period in 2015, up more than 10% compared to the same period 2 years ago. It is not a bad time to be in the real estate business. You can read much more detail from the Arkansas Home Sales Report on our website at talkbusiness.net. A word from our sponsors, and we'll talk health care with Senator Tom Cotton. Are Republicans working on an alternative to Obamacare? What would that entail? Find out the senator's thoughts after this.
Circuits turn on the lights by making a connection, by closing the loop. At Entergy, we believe our economy is circular too. What you put in comes back. So we invest billions in new infrastructure, which helps attract new industry, which helps create new jobs. We partner with local communities to electrify the economy, and together we power life. Entergy.
You've likely heard of the Great Arkansas Treasure Hunt. In fact, you or your business may have property to claim in the hunt. But where does this treasure come from? Businesses like yours. The law calls it unclaimed property. If your business is holding money on its books that you've not been able to return to the owner, it's most likely unclaimed property, and the law requires it to be sent to the state auditor's office each year. Auditor Andrea Lee's office can make the process for businesses to comply with the law easy and straightforward. Help us help you return Arkansans' unclaimed property at auditor.ar.gov.
I sat down late last week to talk politics with Senator Tom Cotton. We discussed the Iran payment situation, as well as the gaffes from the Donald Trump campaign. We also spent a portion of our conversation discussing health care reform. Let's shift gears and talk about another issue that's been dominating. It's more domestic here. We learned earlier this week that Aetna, one of the largest health insurers in the country, is going to drop out of several of the Affordable Care Act exchanges here. They said that one of the reasons they're getting out is that people were sicker than they thought they would be. Diabetes, a variety of different illnesses. I'll just name a few of them from their conversation: depression, hypertension, heart disease, hepatitis C. What should be the fate of people that can't get health insurance that have those problems?
Well, unfortunately, this is just another confirmation of what we've been saying about Obamacare all along, that it's unworkable, that it's fundamentally flawed. Aetna is now dropping out. Previously, United dropped out. We've seen in the news this week that we're going to see double-digit increases in premiums in some plans. In the end, Obamacare has to be repealed, it has to be replaced. In the meantime, though, we need to make sure that we protect those families who can no longer afford health insurance because Obamacare has made it unaffordable.
How do you do that, though?
So,
how do you protect them?
So Obamacare imposes a penalty on families that can't afford insurance, and it's pretty steep. It goes up every year, and this year it's going to be 2.5% of your income, or it's going to be $700 for every adult in your family, $350 for every child, whichever is greater. Not whichever is lower, but whichever is greater. So I've introduced legislation that would block any family from having to pay that penalty if their insurance or the average cost of insurance in their state has increased by more than 10%. That's not a long-term fix,
right,
but is a short-term fix to make sure that families who have suffered the problem of losing their health insurance because Obamacare made it too expensive from having to pay a penalty because of what Obamacare did to them.
So what is the long-term solution? Because I've heard the repeal and replace argument for years, quite frankly, and there has been the effort to repeal. It got to the president's desk. It was vetoed, I believe, and so I still haven't seen legislation to replace it yet. A lot of talk, but no legislation.
Too often in Washington in the healthcare debate, and this was true of Obamacare in 2009 and 10, cost and access are put in opposition to each other. To me, cost means access. If you can make health insurance more affordable, you don't have to force people to buy it. You don't have to put mandates on people. You don't have to penalize them for not having it. People want health insurance. They want to make sure that they get covered, and especially their children get covered. In the long term, we have to use the same principles of market-based competition that you see in the car insurance market or the home insurance market or any other market to encourage more competition, to allow patients and to allow families to make the choices that are right for them given their circumstances in life, given how much they can afford to pay for health insurance, given the likelihood that they're going to have health problems. That's what we have to do in the long term.
When are you going to introduce a bill to make that happen is my question.
Well, I'm right now focused on the most immediate problems with Obamacare. It's going to be hard to repeal Obamacare as long as the namesake of the legislation remains president. We've known that for the last year and a half. As you say, we passed an Obamacare repeal bill earlier this year, and the president vetoed it. But hopefully, in a new president, in a new presidency with a new Congress, we can repeal Obamacare and we can replace it with health insurance reform that works for all Americans.
What would be wrong with hanging out the ideas or a piece of legislation that you say this is what we would change it to? That would make it pretty clear and obvious for a lot of folks to say, I could get behind that, I could support that if what you're saying is true.
A lot of those ideas I've already proposed, and a lot of my colleagues in the Congress have proposed as well.
I can't find a bill for that, though. I'm looking for the piece of legislation.
Well, it's one thing to say that you're going to write an entire bill when you know that bill is not going to pass, but you know, to lay out the general principles.
That happens all the time in Congress. Come on.
But on something as, I mean, healthcare is a central question of our day. It's not just a question for our families. It's a question of our budget deficits. You know, if you look at what state government and federal government spends an increasing portion of its money on, it's healthcare programs, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, veterans health care, and so forth. If we get health care reform correct, it's not just good for our families, but it's good for taxpayers. I'm open to lots of different ideas. There are some basic principles that I would like to see implemented, though, and those principles revolve around giving individuals more choice and therefore more control over their health insurance. I think it'll lower prices for everyone, which means it's going to increase access for everyone.
I want you to be back on the show when you introduce the legislation. You promised me that I'll get that first.
I'll do that.
All right, I appreciate that. All right. That's Senator Tom Cotton. You can catch his full interview online at our website at talkbusiness.net. That's all for today's edition of Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thank you for watching. Check us out online at talkbusiness.net for the latest in business and politics. Plus, follow us on Twitter at TB Arkansas or on Facebook or LinkedIn. Just plug in Talk Business and Politics to find us and follow. If you want to receive our daily email newsletters, they're free. and you can receive them every morning in your inbox before 7 a.m. Just email me at roby@talkbusiness.net and I'll sign you up. And if you want to listen to a podcast of this show, perhaps on your commute to and from work, we're in the iTunes Store and on Stitcher, or you could just play us through your smartphone. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, take care.